All right, I believe that I am streaming now. Hello, everyone. How are you? I have the desk very high right now for no known reason whatsoever. And I have a lot of notifications here on my phone that I'm going to look at, that I'm not going to look at till later. Oh, that's very exciting. Okay, I have to look at this stuff later. So let me just start with a few updates. Oh, there's only 3 people watching. I don't know if anyone will come back and watch this. I was just going to give a sort of state. What's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say like State of the Union address, but not that. State of the Coding Train shareholders report as to what's going on. This month, June, is a little bit odd. Actually, May has been. It's May. This month, May, has been odd, and June and July will be further odd still. Hopefully with a lot of content, but things being different. And then August being also being a little different. I'm going to be away for 2 weeks in August, and then full-blown Coding Train back in September. So I wanted to sort of like go through a little bit of that so people could be updated, but it appears that there are only a few. Oh no, there are five people watching. So let me come back to that in a second. The purpose of today is to make the raw footage, which I will be using this view for, but I'll keep it here for right now, for 2 videos. And those videos are, oh, that's the draft ones. These are the oh, I'm gonna go to here, under outline. Just these 2. The inspiration video I don't think is gonna happen. And let's see where we are. Look at this. Edited, animated, mostly animated, ready, yes, yes, yes. Look, everything's yes, 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 but only, oh, I did publish 1.5. So let's go in and edit this a little bit. So this is the state of data and APIs. I don't think, there's no way this is gonna be ready this week. I guess I could just leave it in there as no. Introduction. So this is going to be prerequisites isn't the word I want to use. What do you need to know, or what do you need to know have? So hopefully by today I'll have recorded the raw footage for these. And I did set mapping with leaflet.js to published. So let's do that. I don't know if there's anyone chatting anywhere. Okay. So this is what I want to record raw footage for today. And I will be doing a kind of like 1-minute word salad that hopefully will make sense. Just giving an overview of the course. Mathieu will animate in various images and preview the stuff in the course behind me. Then I'm going to do a second video, which I'm just going to go through the things that you need. Like, what do you need to know before you start? And what do you need to have downloaded and installed on your computer before you start? So those are the 2 things that I want to get done today. And I don't know why I don't have the playlist. Let me see if I can, hold on a sec. I just don't want to violate anyone's privacy by accident. So, oh, are you kidding me? I should have Slack logged in on this computer, but do not. Look up my password. Hold on a second, everyone. I just want to pull up the actual playlist, but it's not a public URL, just so I can find it more easily. I'm going to look here for Slack. Coding. That couldn't possibly be my password. I really have such an unsecure password for the Coding Train Slack. Uh-oh. Okay, let me go to here, go to pinned and go to here. Oh, no, wrong one. Oh, that's the wrong one. Live. Where have I shared it? Where have I shared it? General? Maybe I shared it in general. What the? Well, there's a lot of posts that I've missed recently. I'm looking for the Data APIs playlist. How come I can't find it? Because I'm not logged into my own YouTube account on this computer, and it's unlisted. But I shared it with everybody. Oh, I'm such a... Oh, I'm so silly. I'm so silly. If I go to YouTube, thecodingtrain.com, turn off the sound, and go to any one of these videos, like this one, and go into the description, I have it linked here. As if I thought it was like something you can find. There we go. So this is the overview. I'm going to move this over here. This is one of those times where I probably should write a script, but I'm not going to. Now, do I want the... I might as well have the laptop in view, though. Maybe not. Maybe not. No laptop in view. Let's try that. Thank you, David. Yes. David, of course, shared it for me. But by the way, so this whole thing is like basically done. Just to let you know, the only thing that is missing is 2.7 isn't here. You should know that some of these might get re-uploaded. Anything that's unlisted, the only ones that are actually finalized and published for real are 1.1 through 1.5. And then the rest will come out slowly over time. But they need thumbnails, descriptions, and then we need to double check them. Like we already found an error. I can't remember which one. One of them has a quick, like, just a little like syncing glitch in it. So some of these will get re-uploaded and swapped out in the playlist. But if you, as anybody, if they were enterprising enough, could find this. But you, as the Coding Train viewer, patron, could certainly come here. Yes, Topher, it's nice to see you in the chat. This is definitely not. This is not only not a full-on live stream. It's not even a full-on member-only, not full-on live stream. All right. So what's going to be the best reference for me to have in front of me as I go through this? Okay, cancel. All right, so now let's switch to this. Is it better if I'm more forward? I think so. Okay. And so I want this to be 1 minute. In an ideal world, what would happen right now is I would just start talking. I would talk for about a minute, and then I'd be done, and I'd leave. It's very unlikely to happen. Most likely, I'm going to need to try to do this several times, and probably it makes sense for me to stop and start throughout and just live with the fact that it is going to have editing in it, which is a very normal thing to have. But you know, one thing that I could do, I noticed that Veritasium does this in some of the recent videos. If you just have two camera shots, one full on, one from the side, you can edit back and forth between them, and it seems much more like it's continuous talking. Because there's no, so then I move to here. Of course, there's the YouTuber thing. The YouTuber thing seems to be like as many jump cuts as possible, which I find sometimes to be a little bit unwatchable. But that's probably because I'm old. See my gray hairs? All right. All right, I guess I'm just going to improvise this. I am recording to disk. I'm not doing a screen capture. There's no reason for me to do a screen capture. And here we do. All right. Hello and welcome. That's what I always say. To train whistle or not to train whistle. I'm trying to use the train whistle more sparingly. The bell, apparently, I'm not using more sparingly. Okay. I like leaning. Leaning is maybe good. Maybe I'm going to try leaning on this one. Hand gestures are a thing, I think. Hello and welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Coffee? By the way, this is one of these I'll refactor this later mugs. I should just not worry about this too much. It's just 1 minute of me introducing this thing. I'm just going to talk to you as if I were telling you about what I'm doing. Hello and welcome to a new course here on YouTube. Ah! I was just told, breaking news, that I can say the word course. Let me just check this email. Okay. 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 I gotta do this because I also only have an hour, which should be plenty of time for 2 1-minute videos, but you know me. And then I'll talk about schedule for the rest of the month. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. I like that as an opening. Is this just a smudge on the monitor? Yeah. Oh, a script would be so useful, but I'll sound so weird if I use a script. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. Okay, that's definitely what I'm saying first. Hello. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. I'm very excited that maybe you're going to watch this. You might be asking yourself, am I in the right place? So, who are you and oh, if for the mugs, this is obviously very important right now because I see you're talking about on the Slack. You have to go to the you can't. It's a long story, but here. Coding train. You have to go to a secret. It's not secret, but it's hard to find link for the mugs. And you actually have to go down here and click on Coding Train Mugs. And that will take you to the mug store. Oh, weird. But why is the I'll refactor that later? Oh, because this is not the current store. This is the old historical store. I should know this. Designed by humans, shop, coding train. No. Yep, here we go. This is what you want. This has the, this has all of these mugs for you. So many of the mugs, many mugs. Guess I should promote this stuff a little more. That's where you need to go. This is how much I don't promote the merchandise stuff because I don't even remember what's where. Okay. What's my oh, hold on. I'm just looking up. I want to see what my there's another playlist that I'm looking for really quickly. This one. Okay. Code programming with P5JS for beginners. Okay. Okay. Hello, and welcome to a new course on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is a follow-up to my Code Programming for Beginners with P5JS video series. And in this course, if you've getting a little closer. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. This is a follow-up course to my previous video series, Code Programming for Beginners in P5JS. You don't need to be a I don't know. I try to avoid using the word advanced. I was about to say advanced. I should just write maybe I should make a bullet point. I'm going to make a bullet point list. This is going to help me. So this is going to be my bullet point list. Hello and welcome to Data plus APIs. Then I'm going to say beginners, welcome. Wait, follow up to code programming with P5JS. Beginners welcome, but not knowledge of basic JS required. Interest in working with data from APIs and creating your own API, saving data to a database. So, and then the things you will learn are web fetch API, working with JS libraries like chart.js, leaflet.js, data formats like CSV and JSON, server-side programming with Node to connect to API services like for weather and air quality data. Saving geolocation based on geolocation API, saving data to a database, Started Pro with Node, web servers with express.js, saving data to a database, and hiding API keys. Accessibility testing, hiding API keys, and deployment to a web server. Okay, so I think this is everything that I want to mention in the intro. This is maybe why I should actually have the laptop in view, because, and can I get a little bit higher actually, because it's kind of nice to see the stickers. Too high. because now I can use this as a guide for what I want to say. Not as a script, but as a guide. And I sort of feel like doing this might make it easier for me to see. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So if I stand here and talk, I can look down here and continue to talk. I don't know how this is going to look. Thanks, Simon. All right. I should get more. If I move this, no, that makes less stickers viewable. If I move this further back, more stickers are viewable. Okay. All right, I think I'm ready to go again. All right, let's try this. Hello and welcome to Working with Data and API. Let me polish off this coffee. That'll help. Oh, I shouldn't be looking at my email. All this important email is coming in. I'm not looking at that. I have to do this. We just put the Slack channel up over here. Okay. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So maybe, Matt, I think what I'm going to do, just to get this done, Mathieu, when you watch this later, thank you for everything. I'm going to go through these bullet points a little bit one at a time. Hopefully I'll get through more than just one at a time, and we'll just edit it together. You'll edit it together, that is. Thank you. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is something of a follow-up to my previous video series, Programming. I just want to get through the beginning. I want to get through like the first like 4, at least the first 4. And I also should be watching the time. Okay, I'm gonna put a timer on just to have a sense. Hello and welcome to Hello and welcome to a new course. This is why I live stream, because I have a problem. Stop. Reset. I think the timer is messing me up. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is something of a follow-up to a video series that I previously made called Code, Programming for Beginners with P5JS. So this is really something also for beginners, but if you're about to watch this course, Just put some music on and wait till the music ends. I like that. Okay. Getting further, like I'm getting a little further each time, which is good. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is something of a follow-up to something I previously made, a video series called Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js. And this is also for beginners, but it builds on top of that knowledge. So if you're here and watching this, you're going to want to have either watched that course or have some basic knowledge of JavaScript programming already. The other thing you're going to want to have if you're here is an interest in working with data and APIs. The other thing that you're going to want if you're here, I'm going to start over. Again, Mathieu, use any previous takes if they're better. I leave it up to you. I won't even notice. I'll never remember what I do. Hello and welcome to, yeah, that was a minute. Great. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. Now, this is something of a follow-up to a previous video series called Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js. This is also something for beginners, but I am going to assume in these videos some basic knowledge of JavaScript already. So you can either go watch my previous set of videos or maybe you already know a bit about web programming and JavaScript. What you don't need to know about, however, is anything about data and APIs. What is an API? What is data? How do I get data? No, maybe you need to know what is data. Oh. Okay. Why don't you say there's native JS? Yes, that's true. Good point. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. I forgot. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is something of a follow-up to a previous video series I made. I don't know if it's really a follow-up. Is it a follow-up? It's not really a follow-up. Intermediate level course? Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is intermediate-ish level content. If you're here and watching, you should have some basic knowledge of JavaScript already. If you've never programmed before, might I suggest to you my other video series called Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js. But this is meant to be as beginner-friendly as possible. So if you are new to working with data, if you are new to the idea of APIs, what's an API even, then this is the right place for you. I'm going to start by covering the JavaScript fetch function, web fetch API. I'm going to start by covering the browser web fetch API, which is, oh, do I even want to say API here? I just want to say function. I'm going to start by covering the JavaScript fetch function, a function that's available in browsers, in JavaScript client-side browser, JavaScript. I'm going to start by covering the JavaScript fetch function, a function that's available to you whenever you're programming in JavaScript in the browser. And what it does is fetch. I don't need to explain all this too much. Next step, follow-up. Yes, that's a good point. I'm going to start by covering the JavaScript fetch function. And fetch will be the building block of almost all the examples that I make. And fetch is a function that can retrieve data. And I'll look at different data formats like CSV. What's a CSV? And tabular data. I'll look at JSON. What is JSON data? And then I'll also look at ways of presenting the data that you retrieve with the fetch function with different JavaScript libraries like chart.js for drawing a graph or leaflet.js for plotting geolocation data on a map. Yeah. But that's really just the beginning of the course. But that's really just the warm-up, the beginnings of the course. The main new piece of learning. But that's really just a warm-up, just the beginning. But that's really just a warm-up, the beginning first module of the course. In the second module of this course, I want to get to how do I want to put this exactly? But that's just the beginning. But that's just the beginning of the course. It's really just a warm-up. What I really... but that's just really... All right, I think I might need to back up and gain my momentum again. I'm not just going to start over from the beginning. But again, Mathieu, I think what I did so far is perfectly good. So just use that if you like. But sometimes it helps me build a little momentum here. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this course is a good next step for you. If you just learned to program, if you know the basics of JavaScript, maybe you happen to watch my video series Code, Programming with JavaScript for Beginners in P5.js, then this course will offer you some new skills and some new opportunities. Oh, I liked everything about that until I got to that. I really like that next step suggestion, Simon. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is really a great next step course for you. Have you just learned to program? Maybe you watched my Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js. So this course is really going to build on the knowledge that you have in basic JavaScript and programming client-side JavaScript, specifically around data and APIs. I'm going to put P5.js to the side for the most part. For the most part, I'm going to be putting P5.js to the side. For the most part, I'm going to put P5.js to the side and focus on looking at other JavaScript libraries on native JavaScript and other JavaScript. One more time. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is a great next step for you if you're a beginner JavaScript programmer. Maybe you just learned JavaScript, maybe you happen to watch my Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js video series, which is a good... Don't ramble, it's what I do, but just be succinct. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train. Yes, it is indeed a new course, and welcome. Goodbye. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train, Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this is, if you are, yeah. How am I in time? Oh, it's 2:20. I have 40 minutes here. Plenty of time. Oh, I have to do the next one also. Crap. Okay. Hello and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. If you're a beginner, maybe you just learned JavaScript, maybe you even watched my Code, Programming for Beginners with P5.js. That's so hard to remember what that video series is called. Hello and welcome to a new course. Oh, hi, Nico. Welcome to torture, watching me say the same thing over and over again. Hello, and welcome to a new course on the coding train called Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript. So this, I imagine, as a wonderful next step for you. Are you a beginner programmer? Did you maybe just learn JavaScript, maybe by watching my Code Programming with P5JS for Beginners video series? This is a place for you to take a next step, in particular themed around working with data, bringing data into your web application, maybe saving data to a database in your web application. I'm going to mostly put P5JS to the side in this video series and look at native JavaScript and some other JavaScript libraries for working with data. I'm going to start with the JavaScript Web Fetch API. Fetch is a function. I'm going to start with the JavaScript Web Fetch API. Fetch is a function that fetches data, and it's going to be the building block of many of the examples that I'm going to create. I'm going to look at tabular data, CSV, what's a CSV, JSON data, what's JSON. I'm going to look at how you can view data using other JavaScript libraries like chart.js, or even plotting the points of geolocation data on a map with leaflet.js. But all of that is really just a warm-up. It's really a warm-up for what is the real show here, server-side programming. If you have only ever programmed client-side programming, then I'm going to add something new for you, server-side programming with Node.js, specifically creating, But all of that is really just a warm-up for not the real show. What am I trying to say? A warm-up for it's like the main act. It's like, you have the opening act as the opening act for what you really came to see. There we go. But all that is really just a warm-up. It's the opening act for what you might really be here to see. Because if you've only ever done client-side JavaScript before, there's a lot that you can't do. And in this video series, I'm going to introduce server-side programming with Node.js. Specifically, I'm going to use, Specifically, I'm going to look at how to use the Express.js Node package to create a web server, how to connect to different APIs to get weather information or air quality information from Node itself. If you need a secret key to get that data, how to hide that key on your server in something called an environment variable. Oh, saving data to a database. That's what I wanted to say next. I got this in the wrong order. Okay. But all of that is really just the warm-up, the opening act for the main event, the main attraction, what you're really here to see, which is server-side programming with Node. If you've only ever done P5JS or other types of client-side JavaScript programming, you're missing a big piece of the puzzle in terms of the kinds of web applications that you can build. So I'm going to cover the basics of Node.js, Express.js, which is a Node package for making web servers. I'm going to look at how to, from Node, connect to different API services. I'm going to look at how you can, from Node itself, connect to web services to fetch data. I'm going to look at how you can, from Node itself, connect to web services to fetch data like weather data or air quality data. And then I'm also going to look at how you can get data from a user and save it in a data. And then I'm also going to look at how you can get data from a user and save it in a database itself. And I'm also going to look at how you can save data in a database itself. I'm going to look at how you can connect from Node to external web services to fetch data like weather data or air quality data, how you can fetch that data and then save it in your own database, storing it to present back to a user later. And finally, I'm also going to cover some practical tips for building web applications, like how to do accessibility testing. And then I'm also going to cover some basic tips for building a web application, like how to do accessibility testing to meet the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, how to if your API, how to if the data that you're retrieving requires secret keys, how to hide those keys in something called an environment variable on the server, and then how to actually take the web application that you make, if you make it on this laptop and test it, how to deploy it onto an actual web server itself so that other people can access it. So I hope that this course will bring delight. Delight. By the way, Topher, it's all available for you to watch already. I'm doing the intro after the fact. It's not public on the channel, but in Slack we can share you the playlist link that I shared at the beginning of this is all there. All of this content will be covered through the lens of all this content will be covered through 3 modules. The first module is just going to cover basics. All this content will be covered through 3 modules. First module, just some basic JavaScript stuff on the client side that you're going to need for the Node projects. Then I'm going to build 2 projects. Both of these are based on projects by Joey Lee, who developed these for a course at ITP called Quant Humanists. One is called the Data Selfie app, and one is called The Weather Here. So I'm hoping by watching me build these projects, they will inspire you to build your own, to do your own creative twist on them, and to make your own project that and to make something creative and to make something creative that inspires you, where you learn some new skills and build more projects in the future. Okay. All this material will be taught through 3 modules. The first module is just going to be basic. All this material will be taught through 3 modules. The first module is just some basic client-side JavaScript stuff. All this material will be taught through 3 modules. The first will be basic client-side JavaScript, some foundational building blocks that you'll need for the Node examples. Then the second 2 modules, I'm going to build 2 projects. One is called the Data Selfie app, and one is called The Weather Here. And both of these are based on projects by Joey Lee, who uses... All this is going to be covered through 3 modules. The course includes 3 modules. The course as it stands, all this will be covered through 3 modules. The first module, all of this will be covered through 3 modules. The first module will just include some basic native JavaScript skills that you're going to need for all of the projects. All of this will be covered through 3 modules. All of this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first module is just going to have some basic client-side JavaScript, native JavaScript, and JavaScript library skills that you'll need for the 2 projects that I'm going to make in module 2 and 3. And those projects are the Data Selfie app and The Weather Here. All this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just include some basic native JavaScript skills. Just give me a second here. I should have gotten some water. All of this will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just be some basic JavaScript client-side stuff. I can't say it. Real-time script writing. Yes, that's exactly what this is, Alka. All this will be covered in 3 parts. The first module, 3 modules, parts, module. All this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just be basic client-side JavaScript, some native JavaScript, some JavaScript libraries, really building blocks that you're going to need for module 2 and module 3, these 2 projects that I want to build. I just want to gain a little, I could really stop in between these more, but all this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just include some basic native JavaScript, saved by the camera. I have to get to this other, shoot, okay. All this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will include some native JavaScript code that you'll need to learn about how to write some concepts. All this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just be some basic native JavaScript and some JavaScript libraries that I want to demonstrate to you as building blocks for 2 projects that I'll build throughout the series. The second part will be the Data Selfie App project, and the third part will be the Weather Here project. Both of these projects are based on work. I actually had it much better earlier. I don't know why I am insisting on doing this again. But all this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part will just be some basic JavaScript. Take a breath for a second. All of this material will be covered in 3 parts. The first part is just going to be some basic JavaScript client-side code building blocks that you'll need for this parts 2 and part 3. And these 2, I'm so like struggling with the fact that I want to say modules, but modules sounds weird, so I'm saying parts. I'm completely in my headspace here about that. I'm not even thinking about what I'm saying. I'm just thinking about part, module, part, module. I'm just going to say module. All the material in this course will be broken down into 3 modules. The first module will include some basic client-side JavaScript code. Code? Do I want to say code? You wouldn't know it, but I have a whole outline here. This part's not even on the outline. All the material for this course will be covered. All the material for this course will be broken down into 3 modules. So the first module is just going to have some client-side JavaScript, look at some native JavaScript, some JavaScript libraries, building blocks for modules 2 and modules 3. Module 2. Saying modules is making me crazy. All the material for this course will be broken down into 3 modules. So the first module is just going to be some native JavaScript, some JavaScript libraries. Client-side. I don't need to say libraries. Got it. Got it. Simplify. 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 It makes it so much easier if you simplify. All the material for this course. Oh, now there's loud people talking in the hallway. All the material for this course will be broken down into 3 modules. The first module, just want to look at some native JavaScript, some client-side JavaScript, building blocks for the real stuff. Not that it's not real. All of it's real. I'm so close. I'm so close. All the material for this course is broken down into 3 parts. So the first module, I said parts and module again. I'm going to say parts. Parts. It's just parts. I'm going to say parts. I do use modules somewhere else. Let's say modules. I'm going to say module. All the material for this course it is, not will be, it is. All the material for this course is broken down into 3 modules. So the first module is just some native JavaScript, client-side JavaScript, building blocks that I'm going to use for modules 2 and 3. And in these, how do I transition? Okay, got it. Can I say full stack? I can say these things are like full stack, right? Because I'm using full stack. All the material in this course is broken down into 3 modules. The first module is just some simple, quick and dirty examples. I don't like to say quick and dirty. All the material for this course is broken down into 3 modules. The first module is just some client-side JavaScript basics, some native JavaScript, building blocks for what I'm going to do in modules 2 and 3. And there I'm going to build full stack web applications. The 2 projects I'm going to make, one is called the Data Selfie App and the other one is called the Weather Here. They're both based on projects by Joey Lee, who developed these sample projects as part of his teaching at ITP in a course called Quant Humanists. So I'm going to go from start to finish to build 2 web applications for you, and hopefully you'll be able to build on what I make and create your own web applications and share them with me after you've finished the course. So thank you so much for So thank you so much for joining this course. So thank you so much for watching this series. I really look forward to seeing what you make and what kind of questions you have. Please let me know and ask. So thank you so much for joining me here. Let me know what your. So thank you so much for joining me here. I would love to hear feedback from you, and more importantly, I would love to look at projects that you make from. So thank you so much for joining me here. So thank you so much for joining me here. If you make anything from watching this course, please share it with me. If you have questions or are confused by things, please ask in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you more on the coding train. Oh, I should just go all in and say, so all aboard, data and APIs on the coding train. So thank you so much for joining me here. So thank you so much for joining me here. I look forward to hearing from you. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? Did you build a project from these materials? I would love to hear about them. Share with me in the comments and enjoy your ride on working with data and APIs on the coding train. All right. I think that's enough material to pull together an entire intro trailer from. Oh, yeah. Gruselhaus, Nico, yes, asked, does it make sense to mention the video details page? So I was, probably, yes. Let me do a version, yes, I think so. In my mind, we hadn't ever been able to keep up with having pages on the coding train except for the coding challenges. But it seems like, thanks in large part to your amazing efforts, that it's possible to do that for some of the other content. So, oh, and I should mention, and Simon is reminding me, I should mention that I'm going to do, I don't think I need to make, I know how you're pointing out the joke about the course starting twice, but I should mention what's coming next, the introductory video. Okay. All right, so let me redo that last part. So thank you so much for joining me here. If you have questions, if things make sense to you, they don't make sense to you, please leave me feedback in the comments. If you make a project based on the materials here, you can go to thecodingdrag.com where you'll find some web pages with instructions about how to share your projects, share links to your projects. Okay. I'm fixing my hair. So thank you so much for joining me here. So thank you so much for humoring me here and joining me in this course. Humoring me. I kind of like that. So thank you so much for humoring me. I think that's too much. So thank you so much for joining me here. I would love to hear from you. If things make sense, if they don't make sense, if you have questions, I know that I've made mistakes along the way. Please leave me your feedback in the comments. If you happen to make a project, your own creative project based on the materials here, you can go to thecodingtrain.com where there's a page for the course and you'll be able to share links to the projects you make there. Before the material starts, there's one more video that you can watch where I'm going to just go through what do you need to have on your computer before you get started with actually the video tutorials themselves. Before I get started with Module 1, there's one more introductory video that will come next. That's just going to go over what do you need to have installed on your computer, what kind of tools do you need, what kind of prerequisite knowledge you need to have before you get started with the video. So take a look at that, and hope you enjoy this ride on the coding train, working with data and APIs in JavaScript. All right, I think that's good. All right, so now, I'm going to save this in case this is useful. So what do people need? You need to know JavaScript basics. You need to know HTML basics. Understanding CSS helps, but not required. You need to have a code editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code, but any will do. You need to run a local server. I'm doing this with Node.js, but any will do. Then I'm going to say all of this is covered in my workflow series. The tutorials will also make use of Node.js running a local server. I'm just going to actually say this. You could use an online code editor like P5 web editor, CodePen, JS Fiddle, to name a few, or even Glitch, which I cover in more detail towards the very end. Okay, hold on. You need to install Node.js, but not until module 2, and I'll let you know in the video when it's time to install. So I think, what else am I missing here? Access to the internet. Yes, I think I will say that's assumed. Oh, I also use Git and GitHub towards the end, but you don't need to be an expert. What else? Oh, you need a console. Need shell access. Console application. Use Mac terminal, iTerm, and then what's the one I usually tell people to use on Windows? Git bash, PowerShell or something. Windows terminal. Oh, is that a thing now? Great. Okay. Yes, thank you, Simon. Maybe what I'll do. Okay. Command prompt is fine. Okay. Is command prompt and Windows terminal the same thing? Yeah. Okay. Oh, same thing. Okay. So what are people going to recognize more? Should I say command prompt or should I just say Windows terminal? Windows command prompt? Windows terminal. Yeah, but if I'm saying it, I'm going to write it down this way, but if I'm saying it, would I say Windows terminal, also known as command prompt? Okay. How am I time-wise? Oh, thank you. Okay. So I'm just gonna say command prompt PowerShell get bash. Okay. Okay. Let me try doing this. If you're here, presumably you're about to start the Working with Data and APIs course. Before you get into the first video, I just want to talk through what are things that you need to have in advance of starting the course. Probably the most important thing is a basic understanding of JavaScript, the programming language itself. So you might have just dabbled in JavaScript, maybe you watched one of my other video series about learning to code in JavaScript, maybe you know JavaScript from some other course you've taken, but if you know some basic JavaScript, you're going to be okay here. If you've never programmed if you've programmed before but not in JavaScript, you might be able to get by, but I'd still probably recommend reviewing the basics of the JavaScript programming language. If you've never programmed at all before, I'd probably suggest, I'm trying to think, let me start with that. Yeah. Let me start this over again. Less is more, people. Hello. If you're here, you're about to start the first video of the Working with Data and APIs course on the coding train. Hi. Hello. Hello. Thank you, Topher. That makes sense. Oh, I'm not even in this yet. Thank goodness. None of that can be used. Hello. If you're here, hello. If you're here, you're about to start the Working with Data and APIs course. Just take a breath here. Okay. I got to go in 13 minutes. I can do this. I have to finish this today. There's no time to do it any other time. It's getting hot in here. Hello. Well, awkward weirdness. Hello. So if you're here watching this video, you're about to start the Working with Data and APIs and JavaScript course on the coding train. So what I want to do in this video is just very simple. I want to just talk about what you need to have in advance before you get to that first video tutorial. So the first thing, probably the most important thing, is basic understanding of JavaScript, the programming language. Maybe you've just learned JavaScript, you're fine. Maybe you watched, okay. I don't need to talk so much about it. Just list the stuff. Before you get started watching the rest of this course, okay. If you're here, you're about to start the first video in the Working with Data and APIs JavaScript course on the coding train. What I want to do in this video before you get started is just cover what do you need to know, what do you need to have on your laptop before you go into that first video. The main thing, probably the most important thing, is knowledge of JavaScript. I'm going to assume that you've programmed in JavaScript before. If you've programmed a lot but not in JavaScript, you might be able to refresh yourself with a couple online tutorials. I'll certainly link to some references in the video, in the description of this video. There's a lot of word stumbling there, and now I know exactly what it is I want to say. If you're here, you're about to start the Working with Data and APIs in JavaScript course on the Coding Train. What I want to do in this video is very simple. I just want to talk about what do you need to know before you get started, and what do you need to have on your computer? What are the tools that you need to follow along the tutorials? The main thing is just JavaScript. This is, if you've never programmed in JavaScript before, you're probably going to want to do a refresher about JavaScript. If you've never programmed at all before, you're going to want to look at an introduction to programming with JavaScript tutorial, online series, video series. I have one of those that I'll link to in this video's description with some other references as well. It'd also be really helpful if you know a bit about the basics of HTML, because I'm going to be placing content on HTML pages and manipulating that content, manipulating the DOM, so to speak. So this is something you're going to want to have some familiarity with, and I'll also include, and this goes for everything. Everything I'm talking about in this video, I'm going to have references in the description, so I'm just going to stop saying that right now. Understanding a little bit about CSS or cascading style sheets could also be useful, but certainly not required by any means. So that's it really for knowledge. Now, what do you need tool-wise? So if you're going to follow along with my code, you're going to need something to type the code in, a code editor. The code editor that I'm using is Visual Studio Code. You can go and download and install it, but you could certainly use anything else. Atom, Brackets, Sublime Text. You could use an online code editor like CodePen or JS Fiddle, the P5JS web editor. Any of these will do, at least for the first module. I should also point out that if you're working locally on your laptop and not with an online code editor, you're going to need to run a local server. Okay. I should also point out that if you're working locally on your computer with, say, Visual Studio Code, you're also going to need to run a local web server. Most modern code editors have plugins that will launch web servers for you, but you could also do it with shell access. And actually, I should really just say that I have a whole workflow series. I'll definitely link to that in the description that covers how to get set up with a text editor, how to run a local server, how to get a console application, whether you're using Mac Terminal or Windows Command Prompt or PowerShell or iTerm or Git Bash. There are so many options that you can pick from. Once you get into Module 2, however, and I start building a full stack web application, you're going to be required to have terminal access, I'm just going to finish this out and then go back and do it again. Once I get into Module 2, however, where I'm building a full stack web application, you're going to need to have shell access on your computer and use one of those terminal applications. All those online code editors won't work anymore because I'm going to use something called Node.js. So you could go and install Node.js right now, but you don't really need to because I'll talk about it in the video when I get to Node.js. I should also mention, though, however, that there are some online code editors that you can use that do run Node.js, and one of the ones that I use in a later video is called Glitch. So you could also check out Glitch now, because in theory you could follow along with the tutorials all using Glitch, but I'm in the videos using a local text editor, and then at the end I show you how to deploy it to Glitch and other online web servers. Finally, there's a little bit at the end where I use something called Git, which is version control, as well as GitHub, which is a website for you to host your version control. Finally, I should also mention that I use something called, finally, I should also mention that all the way towards the end of the videos, finally, I should mention that all the way towards the end of the course, I use something called Git, which is version control. Finally, I should mention that all the way at the end of the course, I use Git, which is version control software. And then I also use something called GitHub, which is a website that allows you to store your Git repositories. So what that all means, I'll talk a little bit about when I get to it. But if you wanted to get a little primer on that, if Git and GitHub are unfamiliar to you, you might check out my series, Intro to Git and GitHub for Poets. All right, I think I'm going to just go back and do this whole thing again. Is that kind of, but Mathieu, once again, sometimes when I try to do the whole thing again, it's not as good. So feel free to pick and choose whatever you want to use. And I've got about 6 minutes here before I need to go. And yeah, okay. If you're here, you're about to start the Working with Data and APIs course on the Coding Train. So what I want to do in this video is pretty simple. I just want to give you a quick list of all the things you either need to know before you start the course and what kind of tools and software and things you need to have running on a computer in order to be able to follow along the tutorials. So probably the most important thing is just JavaScript, the programming language itself. So if you're a total new programmer, if you've never programmed before, maybe you want to check out my intro series about learning to code with JavaScript using the P5JS library. There are ample other beginner JavaScript tutorials on the web. I'll link to some things in this video's description. And actually, let me just say, in this video, everything I talk about in this video will be in the video description. You can actually just stop watching it and look at the list of everything in the video description. But if you want to hear me talk through it, that's what I'm going to do right now. If you've programmed a lot before but not in JavaScript, there's probably some quick references that you could just get up to speed with. But I'm going to assume knowledge of JavaScript. It'd also be really helpful if you understood the basics of HTML, how to write an HTML web page, what the DOM is, what DOM elements are on the page. So if that's new to you, once again, I'll offer you some resources in this video's description. Knowing a little bit about CSS or cascading style sheets could also be useful, but definitely not required. And that really covers all of the things that you need to know before you get started. So now let me move on to what do you need to have operationally on your computer to follow the tutorials. So first thing you need is a code editor. In the videos, I'm using Visual Studio Code. It's a pretty popular code editor that a lot of people use now, but there's no reason you need to use it. You could use a number of any other text editor that you can find on your computer. Atom is one, Brackets, Sublime. There's so many text editors. Everybody has their favorite. For the most part, at least in Module 1, you could also use an online code editor like CodePen or JSFiddle or the P5JS web editor. So certainly you're welcome to try one of those, even though I'm using a local text editor in my videos. For Module 1, you could also use an online code editor like in Module. You also don't actually need to use a text editor that's on your computer. At least for Module 1, you could use an online code editor like CodePen or JSFiddle, the P5 web editor, which is one of my favorites, of course. Open processing, maybe you could even use. Who knows? No, I shouldn't mention open processing. That's going to send people in a whole other random. What was I saying? You also don't need to use a text editor locally on your computer. You could use, at least for Module 1, you could use an online code editor. CodePen, JSFiddle, the P5 web editor, any of these would work. But if you want to follow along exactly what I'm doing, Visual Studio Code is the editor that I'm using. Now, because I'm using a local text editor for some of because I'm using a local text editor, for some of the examples that I'm going to build in Module 1, to work properly, you also need to run a local web server. Visual Studio Code has a live server extension that you can install that runs the web server for you. I'm using a Node server. You can use a Python server. And actually, I should mention that I have a whole entire set of videos called Workflow that cover a lot of these aspects in more detail. So if working with a text... Shoot. Let me just go back a sentence. because I'm using a local text editor, in order for the examples that I'm writing to work, I also need to run a web server. And a lot of the text editors like Visual Studio Code, for example, have extensions that will run a web server for you. You can run a web server by typing in some commands into your terminal access to your computer. And so actually, if this is new to you, I might refer you to my workflow series where I cover how to download a text editor, how to get shell access, terminal access to your computer, how to launch a web server, all of that sort of stuff. But things really change when I get into modules 2 and 3 of this series, because there I start using something called Node.js. So you absolutely will want to have shell access to your computer. You'll notice I'm using an application called iTerm, which is a Mac terminal application. You can use just the default Mac terminal application if you're on Windows, the command prompt, PowerShell, Git Bash. If you're on Linux, I assume you know what you're doing in terms of shell access. So that's what you can use because you're going to want to download and install Node and run Node commands from terminal itself. You don't actually need to do this right now because when I get into module 2, I'll explain to you what Node is and how to install it. But if you want to be up and running and ready for that, go ahead and install that now. There are, however, some online editors that will run Node for you, there are actually some online editors that will run Node for you also. A wonderful one that I use actually in the videos themselves all the way towards the end is There are also online code editors that can run Node for you as well. One of the ones that I love is called Glitch, and I actually use it in one of the videos in Module 3. So you can check it out there, but if you want to experiment with it, go to glitch.com and sign up for an account. You actually technically could follow along with my tutorials without downloading a local text editor and running a server by just using Glitch itself. I do cover a little bit of at the very end of this course, I look at deploying your project to a web server in the cloud, and there I make use of something called Git, which is version control software, and GitHub, which is a website where you can take your Git repos and put them online. That might be completely unfamiliar to you. I will give you a sort of basic primer on that when I get to that, but that certainly would be something that you might want to check out. I have a video series about Git and GitHub as well before you get started with this course, but it won't come in all the way until Module 3. So hopefully I've covered everything that you need to know before you get started with this first video. I am sure that I have forgotten something. So I'd encourage you to check out the video's description because as people are watching the course and asking questions and I realize I'm forgetting things, I will add them to the video's description. So at least there will be a list with links of everything that you might need to know or have before you get started with the first video. So that's it. This is it. I'll see you in the next video. I do have my train whistle, my comfort object. See you later. Have fun. Goodbye. Okay, that's everything. That's a wrap. All right, everyone. I have been recording this to disk the whole time, thank goodness. Mathieu, if none of this was any good, I'll just come back. I can't do it tomorrow, but I'll come back on Thursday and do this again. And thank you, everybody, for giving me the feedback here. And yeah, see you all in Slack. Oh, okay. In 301, since there's some of you who are watching, let me. So I am next Tuesday speaking at the I/O Festival in Minneapolis. I'm very stressed out about that. So I'm preparing, this week I'm, just finishing this course, which has 17 videos that need to come out, and preparing for that presentation. Then I'll be at that conference all week. So there won't be any of the regularly scheduled Coding Train stuff until I get back the week of June 10th-ish. And then I'm gonna just do some coding challenges, revisit the Rubik's Cube, the Neuroevolution stuff, back to the usual thing. And then July and August are really TBD. This room that I'm in is going away, and a new room is popping up. I don't know how much overlap there will be, so I might lose some time. I'm also moving to a new place to live in Brooklyn, and I have some ideas about how I could record videos at home. So there might be a lot of July and August, just so you know, that's like setting up for the future without a lot of new content. And hopefully you, the patrons and members, are willing to support me through that. If I really shut down for a long period of time, I don't think YouTube I can pause the memberships, but Patreon I can pause that. But I don't anticipate that I will be shutting down, but just doing a lot of other stuff. But of course, you're always welcome to unsubscribe or whatever. So I just wanted to give you that quick update, and I'll be back. The next time I'll be like live streaming proper would be not this week, not next week, but the week after. Okay? And I'm committed to doing 3 live streams in June, possibly 4, because Brilliant, I think, will be sponsoring. So with them sponsoring, I think what I worked out with them that they're going to sponsor like a collection of like 3 or 4 live streams. So there will be content coming out. All right. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I have this crazy idea for doing coding videos essentially from outdoors. It might not work at all, but stay tuned. So I want to, I might need a battery powered. I think I can do everything from my laptop, though. Anyway, we'll see. The place where I'm moving to has a little garden. So I have this idea. Obviously, I'm not going to call it Coding Garden, but there's a little shed or cabana. I have this idea of calling it Coding in the Cabana. Going to be anyway. We'll see. Goodbye, everybody. Stop streaming. Oh, wait, no. All right. Okay, I'm shutting down the stream now and